Bro, I fucking hate those donuts.
Based on the number of stores added each year, Little Caesars is the fastest growing pizza chain in the United
Based.
States. There's a lot of pizza chains out there, but I
I think they
think we
were.
can all agree that
Yeah,
there's
back in my day, check it was fucking wicked. You'd go to like a birthday party, whatever, and they would have the crust juicer, Little Caesar with a little bit of spice on it, dude. And they had these little sticks for dessert. It was bussin', and then it just tastes like fucking dog shit.
four that stand out above the others in terms of size. They're Pizza Hut, Domino's,
Later on,
Little
I mean.
Caesars, and Papa John's. Their rankings have shifted around over the years, but those are always the top four. Pizza Hut and Domino's have been neck and neck. Domino's recently obtained the #1 spot in terms of sales. Little Caesars and Papa John's have always been competitive with each other, but as of right now, Little Caesars is the third largest pizza chain in the US. I feel like they're actually bigger than most people perceive them to be. In 2017, they had $3.72 billion in sales, which is 3.5 times larger than they had 10 years ago. They have over 5,000 locations that are located in every US state. They sell a lot of pizzas, and of those 4 restaurants I mentioned, I'd say they stand out the most, and by that I mean they have a very different business model. I don't mean to insult the quality of their pizza or offend any of their loyal customers, but we all know what this is. It's good pizza for the price, right? If I were to set out to buy the highest quality pizza in town, I'm not going to Little Caesars.
Here's my hot take. I think Pizza Hut and Papa John's have the least amount of quality control and consistency over multiple pizza purchases of all pizza chains, especially compared to Domino's.
Probably sooner
Pizza
go to
Hut's good.
Pizza Hut or one of those
Especially.
other 3. But if I want something quick and cheap, well, that's a different story. And that's saying something. The idea behind fast food in general is to be quick and cheap, and to be so far ahead of their fast food competitors in both areas, I'd say they found their spot in the industry.
So I got all this large pie, and the crazy bread and the sauce for $6.
What?
That's unbelievable.
Have you ever found yourself in a position where you need like 5 or 10 pizzas for a kid's birthday party or to celebrate after a softball game? It's perfect for that. But despite finding their place in the market, they've had some troubles, particularly in the late 90s and early 2000s. I would separate the existence of this company into 3 separate phases. From its beginning in the 1950s all the way until the early 90s, I'd group all that together into an expansionary period. Things weren't always perfect, but they were almost always growing. Then from the early 90s into the mid 2000s, that was shaky. Declining sales through most of it, and any increase they saw was minor and didn't really last. The final period was from the mid 2000s up until today, which again, they're back to expanding and back to success. I think we've outlined our rise and fall and rise again. Now what I'd like to do is try to provide some reasoning behind all of this. The first rise, going all the way back to the 1950s, there was a minor league baseball player named Mike Ilitch, who after 4 years in the league experienced a leg injury and was forced to quit professional baseball. A few years later, he and his wife Marion had saved up about $10,000 and used it to open a restaurant. Mike wanted to call it Pizza Treat, Marion wanted to call it Little Caesars, and they compromised by calling it Little Caesars Pizza Treat. Now that name's a little long, and it's easy to see how people would neglect to say the pizza treat part of it. Obviously that part was eventually dropped, but that was the first Little Caesars. After 3 years, they franchised a second location, and by the end of the 1960s, they were up to 50 of them. By the end of the 1970s, it was over 200, and this was a big part of their plan. Just open up a bunch of new restaurants, make them available to everyone, and get the name out there. The plan was put into full effect in the 1980s, over doubling their locations to 500 by 1984, and doubling again by 1986. 1996. And throughout the 1990s, they were hanging around 4,000 locations, even made some big deals with Kmart to add restaurants in hundreds of their locations. To help add to their plan of getting their name out there, they used some heavy advertising. As a rule, they would spend 5% of their annual sales on advertising, and they had a bunch of gimmicky, catchy campaigns. None of it was too serious. They had this crazy looking mascot who is a Little Caesar, makes sense. In the 1970s, they started offering 2 pizzas for the price of 1, which started this whole campaign.
Little Caesar's Pizza, the very large value.
The whole
Pizza.
thing sounds like a joke, and I guess it was, but it was a very successful campaign. It became the thing that people thought of when they thought of Little Caesars. All of that led to high sales, but they also did a great job in managing costs. If you're going to sell 2 pizzas for the price of 1, you better be cutting costs somewhere, and hopefully it's not just in the quality of your ingredients. They did it by making their restaurants carry out only. You can't dine inside of a Little Caesars. You walk in, pick up your pizza, and get out of there. It saves money in so many ways. They don't have to pay servers or wash dishes. Their buildings are smaller, which makes them cheaper, but also makes it easier for them to open up so many so fast. Little Caesars saves a lot of money by not allowing you to eat there. All of these things combine to make a successful restaurant, and I would say it helps explain the rise of Little Caesars. Now, on to the fall. Let me give you a few figures to help illustrate it. In 1992, their US sales reached an all-time high. At that point, they were at $2 billion. In 2002, their US sales were down to $650 million, about a third of what they were. Also, from 1992 to 2000, their total sales dropped every year. That's 8 straight years of declining sales, which is as bad as it sounds. They were struggling, and I have 3 pretty solid explanations for it. For one, increasing competition. Things were getting pretty tough in that market. Papa John's was exploding on the scene and taking sales away from all the
Papa
existing
John's is the
chains.
best.
There wasn't really any higher demand for pizzas, and now there was more supply, which was not good for Little Caesars. And then their advertising. They let up on it, and they changed it. In 1996, they spent $53 million on advertising. In 1997, they spent $35 million. And by 2001, they spent under $3 million.
Okay,
And right around
Dizzy, what did you say that made chat so mauled that everybody's fucking rallying against you? What did you say?
I said Papa John's is the best.
Alright, you're muted. If you want, send me an email, something like that. If you want to come back to Discord, I'm kicking you right now.
around this time, they went
You
with
really
a
say
new
that?
agency to handle all their advertising. The one
You
that
really
they
say that?
left,
You said
they had
that,
been
bro?
with for over a
I
decade,
said
and
that,
they
so
were the
that's
ones you
nice.
can say are responsible for popularizing the
I'm telling you
Pizza,
guys right now,
pizza.
I,
slogan.
Costco
Remember,
pizza
at
is,
this
like, top
point, they've already
S-
had a few
S
years
plus
of
tier.
declining sales.
What would you say?
Costco pizza that you can buy on the
Okay, true. Costco
Yeah, the
pizza,
slices?
Costco fries, Costco hot dogs,
The
Costco
Costco- not the
ice
filter
cream,
pizza, the
Costco
slice.
staff are hot.
What?
Costco males are also hot. Costco soy sauce, Costco socks, Costco is fucking winning. Okay.
And we're likely looking
Okay,
to try
but
something
Papa
new
John's
to help
cookie
revive
dessert
things. Maybe get away from the goofy
bussin'.
humor.
Costco
can't
hookers
lie.
for discount.
Bro,
That's
what? It's
something.
just sugar.
Costco
Dizzy.
chicken bake, Costco
Yeah,
hot dog,
8,000 grams
Costco
of sugar.
pizza.
Who gives a fuck?
Costco glizzy.
And start some serious advertising that emphasizes the value that they provide. I wouldn't necessarily say that's a bad decision. I actually think it's a pretty good idea, placing emphasis on the thing that separates them from the competitors. But here's the issue. They
I
were
have a
known for
Costco
those silly
membership just
ads.
to go
It was
order
their
the food
entire
from there.
image. It's one of the things I identified as making them successful in the first place. If they were going to drop all of it, they needed to replace it with something really good. Start a new campaign that the public now identifies with them. But it never happened. They didn't follow through with anything and sort of lost their identity. The franchisees didn't care much for this either, which leads me to my third reason for their fall. These are the people that run the restaurants, but paid Little Caesars so that they can use their name and sell their stuff. Obviously, the franchisees and the company need to work together. Well, during this time, they were
This
not
doesn't
getting
even
along.
sound like
As
me.
I said, the franchisees didn't approve of all the inconsistencies in the advertising and elsewhere. Here's a quote from one of them. They say, "Part of the problem is how corporate has made 180-degree turns. We got into spaghetti, and they dumped that. They told us to dump the fountain service and get rid of the equipment, then they told us to bring it back. And they abandoned the Italian
What'd you say,
kitchen.
Dizzy?
Meanwhile, our competition keeps getting more and more fierce." It was just costly for them to keep up with all these changes. When the people running the restaurants are unhappy with the people telling them how
Dude,
to run the
Chat,
restaurant,
you can't tell me nothing, chat, guys. The little dust the Domino's put on the pizza, okay? The slight spiciness and consistent good flavor of the marinara sauce in, and the good pepperonis and amount of cheese, they go hard.
Domino's is
They
dog.
go hard.
Wait, you think
dog.
Domino's is the best?
Yes.
Really?
that leads
Yes.
to trouble. Further,
What?
Better ingredients, better pizza.
Domino's. Papa John's is so oily. My brother, it
What?
is so
Subbed for 2
oily.
years
That's
already
really
away.
the opposite. That's what Domino's is.
Bro. I could
Has
take
to
the
be- it has
pizzas, drain them, and put it in the bottle, and I would have a more buck for my money as
This
olive
guy
oil
sounds
than for
exactly
the actual
like
pizza
Dizzy.
itself.
Other evidence of this
Like
is in the year
local
2000,
places,
250 of them filed a class action lawsuit. They claim that the company was forcing them to use low quality ingredients that were far too expensive, as well as, back to the advertising, they were being forced to pay 4% of their sales toward national ad campaigns that they just didn't think were effective enough to justify the cost. There was a $350 million settlement, and by the end of it, the franchisees would have more of a say in these matters. You can see how nobody was getting along here, and how that can be counterproductive for business. And finally, the happy
Wait,
part.
that's like hundreds of thousands of dollars per location.
The part where they rise again. That brings us to the most recent period. I already expressed how well they're doing. Here's the sales graph. So I'll get right to the reasoning. To put it simple, they fixed a lot of their issues. That ad agency that was inconsistent and seemingly hurting them, they got rid of it. They started some pretty effective new promotions, like their deep dish pizza in 2002, and in 2003, that was when they started their $5 one-topping large pizza. Remember how they almost eliminated their advertising budget by 2001? Well, they brought it back. In 2011, it was back up to $22.4 million. And the next year, they brought
That's
back their
it.
old slogan,
Pizza.
after abandoning it for over 15 years. I don't want to put too much emphasis on that
I think it's like fucking cosmic, dude. That like some of these pizza companies are making like $1 billion in revenue, or whatever. And these like 22 mil in advertising. You're like 22 mil.
slogan, but it's been good to them. I mean, they brought it back in 2012. Just saying. As far as their issues with the franchisees, things seem to be better today. The settlement of
Pizza is consistently bad. There's no good pizza.
that lawsuit helped resolve some
True.
issues. They started
It's
a
only good
managed
because it's the only thing open at 2:30.
Yep. And if you go to Toronto, there's two per block. There's 2 per block.
Yep.
You understand me? Yes.
to own program where someone can start as a manager and work their way into becoming an
Best
owner.
pizza in
They
Canada
also
is
started
Pizza
a program
Nova
that provides
Ontario.
discounts
Pizza
for
Nova is top
veterans
tier.
that want to become franchisees. To
Domino's.
summarize, they've successfully identified many of the things that were holding them back, and they addressed them. Before I end the video, I feel like I should follow through with the story of Mike and Marion Illich,
Bro, this is like the dad of the guy who does the taste tests for stuff.
couple that opened that original restaurant.
God, the guy
The
was
first
too close to the
restaurant was
camera?
located near
The guy was
Detroit,
dressed up
Michigan,
with a suit.
and the entire company is heavily associated with the city. In 1982, the couple bought the NHL team, the Red Wings, from Detroit, and in 1992, they bought the MLB team, the Detroit Tigers. Mike died in 2017.
Chat, guys, I don't think there's a single logo on Earth that screams less Detroit Tigers than this shit. What?
Detroit Tigers. Mike died in 2017, but Marion is still alive, and her company owns all of it now. The Red Wings, the Tigers, and Little Caesars. Let me know in the comments, do you agree with my reasoning behind their rise and fall and rise again? Did I cover all the main points, or is
It was alright. It was an okay
No.
video. Yeah, it was kind of lackluster. It's okay. I enjoyed it though.
Check those 2 TikToks.
What's this? Wait, hold up.